Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping into, well, a really potent chapter of ancient law, Deuteronomy chapter 21.
Yeah, it's quite something. Just one chapter, but wow, the range of topics is surprising.
It really is. It gives you this raw look into their society, their worries, their legal thinking. I mean, we've got rules on everything from what to do about unsolved murders.
To how to treat war captives, intricate family inheritance laws, even capital punishment procedures. It's packed.
It is. And our goal here is really to unpack these specific rules. Try and understand why these particular situations needed such explicit handling. What does it tell us about what mattered to them?
Exactly. It's less about abstract ideas and more about, well, specific instructions for messy, real-life situations, how they tried to structure things.
It's like getting the snapshot, isn't it?
Mhm.
A glimpse into how they dealt with tragedy, war, or family conflict.
Mm-hmm. And the legal and maybe moral logic they applied.
Okay, so let's dive in. The first one is pretty complex, maybe not what you'd expect first up. How they handled an unexplained death, like a body found in a field.
Right. The scenario is stark. A man's found slain, out in the open country. Nobody knows who did it. A murder mystery, but with a very different kind of response.
It seems like the community takes it incredibly seriously, beyond just, finding the killer.
Oh, absolutely. The very first step described is, well, it sounds procedural, but it's loaded. The elders and judges from the surrounding towns have to go out and measure.
Measure, like literally measure the distance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from the body to each nearby town.
Okay. Why? What does that achieve?
It establishes which town is closest. And that proximity matters because the elders of that town, the nearest one, have the main responsibility for what comes next, for the ritual purification.
So it connects the crime, ritually speaking, to that specific community's turf.
Exactly. It assigns responsibility for dealing with the pollution, you could say.
And this ritual involves an animal, right?
Yep.
A heifer?
Yes, a heifer. And the description's very specific. It has to be one that has never been worked and has never worn a yoke.
So completely untouched by normal farm labor, set apart.
Right. Like it's pure, unburdened, ready for this solemn task.
And where do they take this heifer? Not just anywhere?
No, the place is specific too. They lead it down into a valley, but a particular kind. One that has not been plowed or planted. A wild place.
Uncultivated.
Right. And crucially, it says where there is a flowing stream, maybe symbolic, the water, life cleansing, perhaps.
And there, in that wild valley, what do?
They break the heifer's neck.
Wow. It's graphic. A kind of sacrifice, then, to deal with the murder.
It seems so. An act to address the defilement caused by this unresolved killing.
And the priests are involved, too.
Yes, the text mentions the priests, the sons of Levi. They step forward. They're the ones chosen to minister, bless, and, importantly here, decide legal disputes and assault cases. So they're there as both religious and legal authorities.
Okay, so after the heifer's neck is broken, the elders from that nearest town, they do something else.
They do. They all gather and wash their hands over the sacrificed heifer.
A symbolic washing, a public act.
Very public. And while they do it, they make a specific declaration.
What do they say?
It's crucial. They state, "Our hands did not shed this blood, nor did our eyes see it done."
Okay, on the surface, that sounds like they're just saying, hey, we didn't kill him.
It does, but given the whole ritual context, it feels like it's about more than just personal innocence in the act itself.
Because the declaration continues, doesn't it? It becomes a kind of prayer.
Exactly. Right after declaring their innocence, they pray, "Accept this atonement, O Lord, for your people Israel, and do not hold your people guilty of the blood of an innocent person."
So they're asking for the community's guilt to be cleared, the collective responsibility.
Precisely. The guilt associated with having this unsolved murder happen in their vicinity.
And if they do all this, the measuring, the heifer, the valley, the hand washing, the prayer, what's the stated outcome?
The text is clear. "Then the blood guilt shall be avenged for them." And it adds, "So you shall purge the guilt of innocent blood from your midst when you have done what is right in the sight of the Lord."
Purge the guilt. Cleanse the community.
That's the stated purpose. It's about removing that collective stain, that spiritual burden.
Okay, let's pause on this. This whole elaborate process, it's so different from how we think about crime. What does it really tell us about their view of corporate guilt, shared responsibility for something unsolved?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? It reframes murder. It's not just a crime against one person. It's seen as something that defiles the land, the community itself, a cosmic imbalance almost.
So the ritual isn't about finding the killer.
Not primarily, no. It's about the community performing this prescribed religious act to cleanse themselves and their territory, to restore balance, to remain right with God. It points to this really strong sense of shared spiritual responsibility for what happens on their land.
That idea of the land itself being defiled is powerful. Okay, let's shift gears, because the chapter does, quite dramatically. It moves from that ritual to the realities of war, specifically rules about female captives.
Yes. It describes the scenario. You go to war, you take captives, you see a beautiful woman among them, you're attracted to her. The law then outlines a process if you want to marry her.
And it's not just grab her and she's yours. There's a procedure.
Right, there are steps. First, you have to bring her home to your house. That's the initial move.
And then there's this period described involving changes and mourning.
Exactly. It requires specific actions. She shall shave her head, trim her nails, and change her captive's clothing. These seem like acts meant to mark a transition, stripping away her immediate past identity as a war captive.
Rituals of transformation, maybe, and the mourning part.
This is really striking. She must remain in your house a full month, mourning her father and mother.
A whole month.
Yeah.
That explicitly acknowledges her loss, her family, her home.
It does. The law builds in the significant period for her grief, right there in the household of the man who might marry her.
So only after all the symbolic changes, the full month of mourning, only then can the marriage happen.
That's what the text says. Then you may go into her and be her husband, and she shall be his wife. The transition period is mandatory.
Okay, now here's a part that seems, well, maybe surprisingly protective, given the context. What if, after all this, the man decides he's not pleased with her?
The law is very direct here. If he's not pleased, he must let her go.
Just let her go.
Let her go wherever she pleases. She gets her freedom, her autonomy of movement.
And crucially, there's something he absolutely cannot do.
Yes, this is vital. It states, you shall not sell her for money or deal with her as a slave.
He can't profit from her or treat her like property after dismissing her.
Exactly. That's explicitly forbidden.
And is there a reason given? Why this specific protection?
Yes, the text provides the rationale. Because you have dishonored her.
Dishonored her. How? By marrying her and then rejecting her.
It seems so. The act of taking her through this process, making her his wife, and then deciding against her creates this state of dishonor, and that dishonor stemming from his actions actually triggers this legal protection for her. He can't then exploit her further by selling her.
So this isn't simple. It's a regulated process even for a captive, with these moments of acknowledgement, like the mourning and this final protection against being sold. What does this tell us about the values here? It's a complex mix.
I think it shows the law trying to impose some structure, some limits, even on something as brutal as taking captives in war. The mourning period gives her humanity space. And that final rule, forbidding her sale because she's been dishonored by him, it suggests that entering that marital relationship, even under duress, changed her status in a way that couldn't just be undone for profit. It's a strange blend of male power and mandated, if limited, consideration for her.
That tension between power and protection is really noticeable. Okay, moving inside the family now. The chapter addresses inheritance rights, specifically with the firstborn son in a situation with two wives.
Yes, and it's a very specific setup. A man has two wives. He loves one, but not the other.
Common enough scenario, probably.
And both wives have sons. But here's the key. The firstborn son belongs to the wife he doesn't love.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's potential for the father to want to favor the son of the wife he actually likes, give him the special inheritance.
Exactly the conflict the law addresses. And it's unambiguous. When the father divides his property, he must not give the rights of the firstborn to the son of the beloved wife in preference to the son of the unloved wife who is the firstborn.
So his personal feelings about the wives are legally irrelevant to the firstborn's rights.
Completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter which wife bore the first son or how dad feels about her. That son is the firstborn.
And he must get the firstborn's share, the double portion.
That's the requirement. He shall acknowledge the firstborn, the son of the unloved wife, by giving him a double portion. It's a fixed legal right tied to birth order.
Is there a reason given for why this is so absolute?
Yes, the text says that son is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. It links the firstborn's status directly to the father's legacy, the start of his lineage's strength. That right is inherent in being the first male heir.
So this prioritizes the legal structure, the lineage, over the father's personal emotions or preferences. What does that signal about inheritance in this society?
It highlights how crucial established rights, especially the firstborns, were. They were protected by law from emotional manipulation or favoritism. Inheritance wasn't just up to the father's whim. It followed strict rules designed to secure the patriarchal line and the economic stability that came with that firstborn status. The structure trumped feelings.
Okay, now we come to a section that often causes, well, a lot of reaction. It deals with a son described as stubborn and rebellious.
Yes, this one is stark. The description is quite detailed. He does not obey his father and mother, ignores their discipline, and is further labeled a glutton and a drunkard.
So it's presented as more than just typical teenage defiance. It's persistent disobedience plus destructive behavior.
That seems to be the implication. A pattern of serious rebellion.
And what are the parents instructed to do in this situation?
The law says the father and mother should take him to the elders of his town at the gate.
The town gate, the public legal space. So they're taking a family matter public.
They are. They initiate the process by bringing him before the community leaders, and they have to make a specific public accusation.
What do they declare?
They must state directly to the elders, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious. He does not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." They are formally accusing their own son.
And the judgment. The consequence prescribed is severe.
Incredibly so. The text says, "Then all the men of his town shall stone him to death."
Stoning by the whole community.
Yes, a communal execution carried out by the town's men.
And the reason given for such an extreme punishment.
It's stated explicitly. "So you shall purge the evil from your midst, and all Israel will hear and be afraid."
Purge the evil and act as a deterrent through fear.
That's the rationale provided in the text.
Wow. This law, it's tough. It shows extreme parental authority, but also community responsibility in a way that's hard for us to grasp. But the severity, what does this suggest about how they saw the relationship between family order and community stability?
Well, what's striking is how the family issue becomes a public communal crisis. The parents bring the charge, but the community executes the sentence. It suggests that this kind of persistent, defiant rebellion, especially linked to behaviors like gluttony and drunkenness, wasn't just seen as a family failure.
It was seen as a threat to the whole town.
Apparently, a fundamental threat to the social and moral order. It required collective action, however harsh, to remove that perceived evil and, crucially, to scare everyone else into line. It shows just how deeply intertwined they believed familial obedience was with the health of the entire society.
A disturbing link, definitely. Okay, finally, the chapter ends with rules about burying executed criminals. Specifically, someone guilty of a capital crime put to death and then hung on a tree.
Yes, being hung on a tree seems to be either part of the execution method in some cases or a post-mortem display, a mark of extreme disgrace.
But there's a strict rule about how long the body can stay there.
A very strict rule. You shall not let his corpse remain overnight on the tree. It must come down before nightfall.
And buried immediately.
Yes, you shall bury him that same day. No delay. Burial must happen before the day ends.
Why the urgency? Are reasons given?
Two key reasons. First, the text states, "For anyone hung on a tree is under God's curse." There's a specific divine curse associated with this manner of death or display.
A curse. Okay. And the second reason? It connects to the land.
Yes, and this echoes the theme from the unsolved murder. It says, "You shall not defile the land that the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance."
So leaving the cursed body exposed overnight actually pollutes the land itself.
That's the explicit connection made. The land's purity is at stake.
So this isn't just about the punishment or even respect for the dead as we might think of it. It's about the state of the body after death and how that relates to curse, defilement, and the sanctity of their inherited land. What does this reveal?
It reveals this deep conviction that the physical state of an executed body, especially one marked by this specific curse of hanging, had direct spiritual consequences for their territory. The corpse wasn't just inert matter. It could transmit impurity, defile the God-given land. So quick burial wasn't just practical, it was a vital religious and legal duty to keep the land holy. It shows how tied together their beliefs about God, law, punishment, and the physical land itself were.
Okay, so looking back at this whole chapter, Deuteronomy 21, it's
Yeah.
quite a journey. We went from that intricate ritual for an unsolved killing,
To rules for war captives with those surprising protections.
then the rigid inheritance law overriding
The
feelings,
incredibly harsh law for the rebellious son.
and ending with burial rules tied to land purity and divine curse.
It's a real cross-section of their legal and social world. You see them grappling with life, death, war, family, order, all within this religious framework.
It's just striking how diverse the situations are, all packed into one chapter, addressed by one code.
It really shows an attempt to create a comprehensive system, covering areas we'd probably separate today: criminal law, family law, ritual law, military regulations. For them, it seems it was all part of one interconnected whole.
So as we wrap up, thinking about this range from communal atonement to stoning a son, what core values or maybe fundamental tensions seem to be driving these laws? And what does putting a law that offers some protection to a captive next to one that mandates death for a rebellious son? Tell us about their priorities.
That's really the question, isn't it? It seems there's this overriding concern for the community's integrity, both socially and spiritually. Concepts like purity, maintaining order, securing the lineage, avoiding that collective guilt before God. And on the land, these seem paramount.
And the contrast.
The juxtaposition is telling. You see moments of specific, perhaps unexpected protection for vulnerable individuals once they are brought into a certain context, like the captive woman potentially becoming a wife. But at the same time, the system ruthlessly enforces conformity and obedience within the core social unit, the family seeing deviation there as an existential threat requiring drastic action. It suggests the highest priority was preserving the collective fabric, the perceived spiritual and social health of the whole community, even if the cost to individuals could be incredibly brutally high.